All right, welcome to Random Vets Real Stories. Today's guest is retired Lieutenant Commander Dalyn Dunn, U.S. Navy. How are you doing?
Good, Tim. Yourself?
Good. Hey, we're going to go through some questions and just find out a little about you and your story. And here we go. Where are you originally from?
So I claim Craig, Colorado is my hometown. So it's the northwest corner of Colorado, 50 miles from the Wyoming border and 50 miles from Utah. So as of the middle of the 8th grade, that's where my family settled, and I finished out my high school year.
Okay. How would you describe your childhood?
Um, I think it was actually pretty good. My dad was a union pipe fitter, so we were always moving. I think last I counted that I could determine was I attended 20 different schools before the 8th grade. So my dad took the family wherever we went, wherever the union sent us. So always busy, always moving. Not a lot of chance to make friends, but other than that, it was mostly outdoors. My dad was a big outdoorsman, so I liked being out there hunting, fishing. Colorado definitely fit into that and what we wanted to do. Wasn't too much on the mechanic side, like auto mechanics, but that was kind of where I dove in.
All right. Sounds kind of like my childhood as far as being outdoors. I enjoyed it a lot.
Absolutely.
All right. Describe your parents.
Just touch real briefly on my father there, my father that adopted me. So outdoorsman, pipe fitter for the union, which is one of the reasons we ended up in Craig, Colorado. A small town east of Craig is Hayden, Colorado, and they were building a power plant, coal power power plant to supply Southern California with electricity. So that's why we moved there. That's where the job was, and that's where we stayed. So mother, not a college graduate. She started college, ended up getting pregnant with me. My real dad actually said, "Don't count me in," and left. So I left her on her own. She had to quit college, and she was a waitress for many years in many different restaurants. So definitely didn't live across the tracks, but we live right next to the tracks. So not a lot of money. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so money was always tight, but we made it. So it's all good.
Oh yeah. All right. All right. So you've told me that your father was a pipe fitter, so obviously you didn't grow up in a military family. Was there someone that influenced you to join the service?
No, really not. I mean, I knew my grandparents and on my mother's side, my great grandparents, but my dad served 4 years in the Army. He was part of a general's staff, mostly driving the Jeep, is what he said that he did, and various other duties as assigned. But really, no family members that influenced me or friends of family members that influenced me to join the military. Um, I think the one thing that kind of hooked me on the Navy, even though later on we'll talk about it, but the one thing that hooked me on the Navy was the TV show McHale's Navy with Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway. I love that show.
Yeah.
The camaraderie that was with them, even though it was kind of a comedy show, but that was all about me. I loved it. So I'd say that was probably my biggest influence.
Okay. Did you go in right after high school?
I did. I raised my hand on graduation day from high school, and I went in the delayed entry program for 1 month and then shipped out on June 26, 1980.
Cool. So that so you entered service in 1980. So you're a few years ahead of me. What jobs did you perform while serving?
So I was everything from my enlisted rate was AMH. Now it's all AM. So whether you're an S or H, it's all AM. But so everything from a crew chief to a mechanic to a maintenance chief to a maintenance material control officer of a squadron to assistant AIMD officer on a carrier, and then program office. I was a program officer for a support equipment office. So quite a few different things, varied career over 28 years and a few months. So.
Okay. So yeah, that was, you're moving into a future question, but we'll touch back on it here in a second. Describe uh, your commands.
Sure, I can list the commands, tell a little bit about what I did with each one. So my first command right out of A school there in Millington, Tennessee was the Blue Angels, Naval Flight Demonstration Squadron. And we can get into that a little bit, Tim, if you want, on
Sure.
how I got to be there.
Yeah.
So Naval Flight Demonstration Squadron, I guess they were testing a new methodology for personnel to be part of the squadron. So limited number of personnel. Mostly you have to be hand selected to go to the squadrons. They tried something different because they were having trouble with finding qualified candidates to apply. And also once they actually did, they were having trouble with personnel bringing some bad habits from the fleet to the squadron. So it was kind of tainting it. So their methodology or their thought pattern was, let's try somebody that's not already tainted by the fleet. We'll get them right out of A school. They're definitely easy to train, going to absorb the knowledge and so on and so forth. So they wanted an AMH and they wanted an AE. So it was myself and John Devine. We both graduated top of our class there out of A school. They offered us the option, do you want to go to the Blue Angels? Me, myself, not being close to Navy squadrons or, water, I didn't know who it was. I actually had to ask some people. Internet really didn't exist at that time, but I was like, yeah, I'm on board. Let's go. So went to the Blue Angels. I was airframes technician at the time. AMS-1 Keith Holbert was my LPO, which we can talk about later. Was there for a few years, went into the line shack and was a crew chief on the number 7 aircraft with the Blue Angels and enjoyed my time. So spent just over 4 years of Blue Angels.
Okay. Yeah, I hear those are pretty demanding tours.
It was really demanding. A lot of travel. Definitely, it's all spit shine and interaction with people from various parts of the country constantly. So you are the Navy's ambassador out there to everybody. So there's definitely a smile, a handshake. Be professional. It's everything that you would hope for. My last year there, I traveled a lot. I was on the road over 200 days by my choice because I knew it was my last year. So anyway, I enjoyed it immensely. Got to meet a lot of people. Got to do a lot of things that I never thought I would. So as I said, with the number 7 aircraft, it was also the aircraft that we flew media personnel before the air shows, the local newspaper, local radio, local television. And also sometimes we had the opportunity to fly Hollywood stars, Dolly Parton, so on and so forth. So
oh yeah,
that was part of my job, was to provide them their briefings, to strap them into the aircraft so they would get that experience. But it was all very good. It seemed to go by very fast. So,
right. Y'all were flying A4s then, correct?
We were. And so we took the TA4 2-seater up there wherever we went. So usually roll into the air show site the day before the the actual aircraft and the rest of the crew arrive. So make sure the hotel's set up, cars are ready, rental cars, make, any last minute changes from the air show coordinators. So
Did you fly in the back seat with the pilot to the air show destination?
I did absolutely. And yeah, that's an experience in itself. So I had to get air crew qualified down here in Pensacola, swim tests. I went through that in January. Man, it was cold, out there in the bay. But yeah, very physically demanding in that regard. And then also, so myself and another enlisted member were responsible for that aircraft. Everything that happened to that aircraft, we're responsible for. We reported to the pilot. So working on the aircraft, I helped whoever it was that was doing anything to that aircraft, whether it's changing an engine, phase inspection, whatever it was. So myself and my partner, we alternated on air shows that we went to and keeping the aircraft clean and fit. So that was it. It's like, your own Corvette or whatever you want to call it. It's like, there it is. So it was a privilege. I excelled there. I was turn qualified. I was taxi qualified because we needed to taxi the aircraft. I was an instructor for taxi qualification. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty great first tour.
It was. It was incredible. And I knew that, the rest of the Navy wasn't like that, but to start out at that level and get that training. So I think it helped in some regards. It's a lot of great people that were hand selected to be there. So
you would have been 18 to 22 years old while you were there?
That's correct.
All right. Yeah. Running around in jets and firing them up and all that stuff and taxiing. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had to taxi the aircraft every time we changed the brake pucks because they had this little coating on the brakes and you had to burn it off by taxiing to make sure that when the aircraft were used for the flight demonstration, one of the key points was stopping at the end of the runway, them getting in position. They need to actually run the engines up to full power to take off. So we wanted to make sure that there was no slipping. They didn't bump into each other even before they got off the ground or anything like that. So it was absolutely crucial.
Okay. Where did you go to from there?
So from there, I went to VF-32. So Fighter Squadron 32, flying F-14As there at Oceana. Probably one of my favorite tours. As I mentioned earlier, Master Chief Keith Holbert, that we know, he was in the Blue Angels. He was my LPO, but he went to VF-32, as you may know, Tim.
Yeah, that's where Dalyn and I crossed paths. Dalyn was my shop supervisor in airframes on VF-32.
Absolutely. So I called up Keith from the Blues when I talked to the detailer. He gave me a choice of 3 sets of orders you're going to see. So I said, okay. So I called up Keith and said, hey, I see you've got an opening. Can you tell me a little about the squadron? Let me try to get some information. I don't know really what an F-14 is and so on and so forth. And he says, come on up here. We'll get you all set up, get you going, teach you all about the F-14 and go from there. So I said, okay, at least let me go somewhere where I know somebody. And so off to Oceana I went. So VF-32, Tim, you and I met. We met actually I met quite a few people, Corey and Scott Derrick and so on and so forth. And that list is long.
Yeah,
Barnes
definitely.
And Castillo and just on and lots of folks. So that was one of my favorite tours. A lot of camaraderie in that squadron. We worked hard, played hard for sure.
Yeah.
And lots of great ports of call, in the Med and such. But enjoyed that one immensely. I learned a tremendous amount. But and Tim, I'm sure much like you, I absolutely fell in love with the F-14.
Oh yeah.
It would sometimes beat us down so hard, but there was always a solution. everybody in the squadron seemed to help each other. There was really no fighting, or of course there's always kidding around and jest with the other shops, or even our sister squadron, VAW-120 at that time. So
Right.
there's always some jabs and stuff. We went on deployment, we go on workups, who got their aircraft off the deck first. There's always competition, didn't matter what it was. So
Oh yeah. So how long was your tour in 32?
So I was there from 85 to 89, so I did 4 years there. It was only a 3-year tour, but then Bupers came out and said, everybody that was an AM, you got to do an extra year, because the rotation was kind of off for everybody. There was just nobody to cycle back in. So it's like, all right, another 12 months. From there, I went over to AIMD Oceana.
Okay.
So figuring, okay, one less move I had to do. So it's basically just walk across the street and down the road, 100 yards, and I'm there. So went over there as first class. I wasn't the shop supervisor at AIMD Oceana. They had the hydraulics shop, then they had the strut shop, which worked on all the struts for the different aircraft. So the F-14, of course, wheel brake shop, corrosion shop, so on and so forth. So I wasn't the LPO there to begin with. So they put me over in the strut shop, started getting experience with that. There was an airframes bulletin that was out that they were cycling all the struts through and checking for cracks in various areas. There was an issue there that we won't get into, but so kind of got familiar with that and such, and seemed to do pretty well. And then I was there just a short amount of time, and learned that I was selected to be a chief petty officer.
Okay.
And so AIMD Oceana only had one billet for an AM chief, and it was already being filled by another chief that had just gotten there. So they said, all right, you're going somewhere else. So detailer said, okay, we'll get you through, initiation, chief's initiation, everything else, and where do you want to go after that? So looked at what he had to offer. And really, the only thing that was close was over in Norfolk. So skip up the road from Oceana, went up to Norfolk, and that was VAW-120, the E-2 RAG squadron. So
Okay.
I was like, this is going to be different, going from F-14s to E-2s. So it's going to have some challenges. I don't know anything about E-2s whatsoever, but in my capacity, it's rely heavily on personnel, the teams, to actually get the job done and get it knocked out. So that's where I went.
All right. How long were you over there? And how long did you stay at AIMD? Was that a year or two, or?
Yeah, the AIMD Oceana, I was there, like I said, 13 months.
Okay.
And then I was at VAW-120 for 2 years. I got there. They had a rotation right off the bat. Came in and talked to the master chief that was in charge. He says, hey, the first 6 months, all my new chiefs we're in rotation with the wing that's here, that they go to the support equipment pool and manage the support equipment pool for 6 months. We've got, that's, checking out NC8s, hydraulic jennies, tow tractors, so on and so forth. So they run the pool. I said, okay, I get it. New kid on the block. Just fresh anchors and everything else. So I went over there and ran it. Time was getting close for me to rotate out of there. Another squadron was going to have their chief come in, take it. So I went back over to VAW-120. Spoke to the master chief and the maintenance master chief, and asked them, I said, what was your plans for me coming back over there? And he said, well, we really don't know yet. We really haven't got a plan, and we'll figure it out, once you actually get back over here. And I said, okay, I hear what you're saying, but we really need to come up with a plan. I don't want to walk in and not have hey, here's what you need to be doing. There's your job, so on and so forth. I'm not, I don't want to just float around. So I pressed them not to drag out the conversation. And they were having problems with their night check, basically getting work done. Their night check chief was a good chief, but he just wasn't strong enough to be actually getting the job done. They needed aircraft. They were RAG. They needed to train air crew. They had to get qualified. They were behind. They were walking in with a small handful of aircraft ready for the next day's operations, like 2 or 3 of the 20 aircraft. They were also training CODs, COD pilots. So
Right.
C2 aircraft and their pilots, they needed to get trained. They need to have aircraft up. So the last time I went in and talked to the mass chief and the MMCO, said, hey, what's the job? What are we going to be doing? Well, I'm getting ready to come over here in a week. And they said, we still don't know. I said, I'll tell you what, we'll make this deal. I'm going to be your new night check maintenance chief. Okay. That's it. Cut and dry. Okay. So we'll have aircraft up to meet the flight schedule the following day. Make me your night check maintenance chief. And they're like, you really want that job? I said, yeah, it's going to be a tough road, but yeah, I want that job. So that's what it was. Came in there, took over the night check maintenance chief, and it was different for the E-2 maintenance folks because you have an F-14 maintainer running night check. And those of us that are in F-14, we know how that goes. It's day check and stay check, and we will have aircraft ready. So it was a long road. I bucked heads with a few supervisors. But the maintenance officer, the mass chief, MMCO would come in the morning sometimes, still have night check there, burning back ends, making sure radar's up and ready to go. Still got air crew qualified. So that's the way I ran. So the last, the year and a half that I was actually in the squadron, not in the pool, that's what I was doing. I was night check maintenance chief. So
did you enjoy it?
I did. I learned a lot about the E-2. Again, a lot of great folks. I think they learned a different way of doing business, setting priorities, getting the job accomplished. I think that worked out really well for them. I don't know that they'd ever want another F-14 guy running with me, but hey, that's just the way it was. So
was their flight time to maintenance hours a lot better than the Tomcat?
A little bit. My last recollection for them, it was 38 hours to 1 flight hour. Now, as well as I do, in 32, we were over 55 man hours to 1 flight hour. Flying the F-14A, we know, but it was way up there. There was a lot of maintenance. Seems like every time we turned it around, we're doing an airframes bulletin or airframes change or making some bracket for something or whatever it might be. So
yeah. So where did you go when you left there?
So I left VAW-120 in 92. I went over to VA-14. I went over to the other side. So VA-14. So I was there from 92 to 95. I rolled in there as chief petty officer. Figured out, talked to them, what's the job I need to be doing while I'm here. So they wanted me to start being their QA chief, so QA CPO. So I was like, okay, I've been a CDI and everything else, never been a QAR, I've never been in the quality assurance piece as far as in charge of it. But I was like, okay, let's see what this is all about. Had been on the receiving end, QA inspections, and various monitoring methods and such. So I knew the responsibility. But so QA CPO, I walked in there, took over that job, did that real well. Working on my safer flight qualifications for the F-14, so I could be a maintenance chief behind the desk for the F-14 and work that angle. So it's quality assurance chief petty officer. Finally got moved over to as far as being a maintenance chief petty officer, and also was filling in as their airframes chief petty officer for a little while. They had trouble finding one to fill that spot. So during my time there as maintenance chief, decided that was going to apply for the LDO program. So myself and another couple of chief petty officers were going to apply, and we did. So Didn't make the LDO program the first time that I submitted my package for it, but I did make it the second time that I submitted. So
That's good. How
a little
many
bit different.
deployments did you do at 32 before
So
you
go ahead, Tim.
went over to VF-14?
So I did 2 deployments with 32. I did
Okay.
2 deployments with 14.
Okay. Yes. If you're watching this and you're not familiar with the military, the Navy does a rotation of sea duty and shore duty, is what they call it. So, um, Dalyn's VF-32, and then he's the VAW and the AIMD tours were shore duty, and then he's back in VF-14 on sea duty. All right, so you can continue. I'll leave you
Yeah,
alone.
no, it's fine, Tim. Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. So did 2 cruises there with VF-14. Found out, as I said, I got selected for the LDO program. So our MMCO at that time with VF-14 was Don Bazard, Lieutenant Don Bazard. Great guy, hard-nosed guy, very smart, very appreciative of everything that he taught me. As far as the MMCO responsibilities, things to watch for, weight and balance, which is a whole nother school just for how to determine weight and balance for an aircraft, and also log books and so on and so forth. So lots of things. Maintenance chief is great. MMCO is just one step a little bit different. So knowing that I was going to be selected as an LDO, and then proceeding on. So he wanted to give me that background. So as luck would have it, my tour with VF-14 culminated with my defrocking as a chief petty officer and putting on ensign bars as an LDO. So right at the end of 1995, October 95. So that's when I actually put on LDO. So great ceremony. Squadron did a fantastic job, way more than I asked them to do, but they repainted an aircraft with my name on the canopy at ceremony. Chief McClatchy was my person to render the first salute to me as an LDO. And I, of course, gave him a silver dollar, which is Navy tradition. He still has it. I talked to him earlier this year. Great guy.
Yeah.
So Rich McClatchy. Quite a few people there that I knew, and held the ceremony right there in Hangar 200. So old stomping
Okay.
ground.
All right. So now you're commissioned. Where do
I'm
you head
commissioned.
to for VF-14?
Yeah. So as luck would have it, spoke to LDO. We'll call them detailers for this piece. But anyway, he said, first tour for LDO is straight off the bat. You're going back to sea duty. So back-to-back sea duty. I just finished up with F-14s. I need to go to knife and fork school down in Pensacola, learn how to, I guess we call it knife and fork school, operate as an officer, go through that school, the doctrine, the etiquette, so on and so forth. So came down here to Pensacola, spent 2 months going through knife and fork school, finished up, and I chose to go to VF-31 out in Miramar. So I looked at it as, all right, I'm a brand new officer. I was like, let me approach this 2 ways. He had an F-18 squadron, VF-31, and he had a ship that the LDO detailer was trying to fill. I said, I'll take the F-14 squadron. I said, at least let me get into a place where I know the aircraft rather than learn the job and learn the aircraft. I know the aircraft, after doing 32 and 14, and being behind the desk as main chief. So at least in that regard, I don't have like both feet in the grave. Let me only have one. Then all I got to do is learn about whatever job they're going to give me. So that was it. I headed out to Miramar, VF-31 there in January, February of 96. The wife at that time Tina and family, they wanted to go with me, even though we knew when we went out there that VF-31 was re-home porting back to Oceana after the upcoming cruise in '96. I said, "You sure you don't want to just stay here? I mean, we had a place, a house, kids are in school, so on and so forth. I'll just go out there. I mean, 6 months of my year out there, I'm on deployment. So, I mean, you sure you want to go?" Yep, we're going out there. I said, "Okay, here we go, cross country," and took everybody west and set up out there. Got there to VF-31, expected to be their MCO, material control officer, kind of overseeing the supply department, the material, make sure we get everything, so on and so forth. Got there, went over to the fighter wing, told them who I was, they welcomed me aboard, told me where the squadron was, it was just which hangar, so on and so forth, and who to ask for. So went over the squadron check-in, so on and so forth. Their hangars were much like ours. Went up on the second deck. They had 2 stores. Worked my way around, met Master Chief Bond. At that time, he was their maintenance Master Chief, and met a lieutenant that was there as their MMCO. They were coming down the hallway. Master Chief Bond, I introduced myself to him. He said, "You're the guy that we've been waiting on." He turned to that lieutenant and said, "You're no longer our MMCO." He looked at me and pointed and says, "You're our new MMCO." I said, "Okay, I'm on board. So let's see what we can do." So that really caught me off guard, but I was up for the challenge. And thankfully, Don Bazard helped me out a lot with the knowledge of what's required of the MMCO. And so I think we did pretty well. VF-31 was, I get there, they were in the midst of doing 2 major avionics changes to all the squadron aircraft before we went on deployment. So we had Nate up there 24 hours a day. There always had to be somebody there kind of overseeing it because we were shortly going to be on deployment. So in a matter of 5 months, we were going to be on deployment. And a lot of work to be done. So we were getting outfitted, this being F-14Ds, we were getting outfitted with lantern pods, and we were also getting the ASFA, the anti-jamming fixes on the front of the wings. Well, not the wings, but actually the glow vein area. So those were 2 changes that were going on. Plus, still keeping everybody qualified, air crew, flying, hot pumps, night quals, getting, as you and I both know, right before cruise, I mean, there's a lot of activity. You're still doing a lot of workups. You're still doing a lot of nighttime flying and keeping everybody's quals up. It's probably enough talk for me on that subject for a minute, Tim.